Hello everyone, nice to meet you. Today I'm here to represent the case of the Republic of Kiran. And it has a total of 8.9 million inhabitants, which are concentrated in Kiran, Narendra, and it is a member of the United Nations, the International Convention of Civil and Political Rights, the Convention on Prevention and Punishment of Crime and Genocide, the Convention Against Torture and the Forgivia Conventions of their additional protocols. It has also ratified all the treaties of the Inter-American Human Rights System together with the Rome Statute. After the Battle of Monte Sacro in the Republic of Iran became an independent nation, the indigenous communities that had been a fundamental part of this process were gradually regalia and they were enslaved from the big cities, which meant that their traditions and language remained intact until the beginning of the 21st century. However, since to 1969, as a result of the industrialization, many of the communities were forced to join urban life, seeing their territories affected by the foreign exploitation. Mr. William Cortes became president of the Republic of Iran, implementing so-called Plan for Order and National Progress, which sought to strengthen Orthodox Catholic values and traditions, along the exaltation of patriotic symbols as a social value for the citizens of the Republic of Iran. To the retirement of those belonging to the indigenous communities, Mr. Cortes appeals to the prejudice of the majority, went so far as to affirm that the indigenous worldwide related to care of the environment has affected the industry's development by the hidden entrepreneurship in those regions. In this context, the implementation of educational program specifically aimed at children and also adolescents belonging to indigenous companies was announced. The program will unify the education system of Quran under the name of Plan Emprendimiento, where these children will be placed in the boarding schools, receiving education of history, values, and culture of Quran. Factors such as the force of entry into the education system throughout criminalization and transfer the subsequent adaptation of the minors. And they almost no communication with their family, origin the imposition of clothing, language, and custom different from their own, which include an express provision to speak their native languages, messes with compulsory attendance, together with the opinion and measures will by health teachers and directors help they constitute a context of vulnerability towards the children in parallel to implementation of these educational policies the government proposed in Congress amend to the penal code to criminalize the parents who did not provide education to the children. According to what is mentioned in the case, the crime refers to a cultural genocide. This according to what was ratified by the United Nations in the International Convention of Civil and Political Rights, the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, and the Convention Against Torture for Genova Conventions, and their additional protocols. Queron has also ratified all treaties for the Inter-American Rights System. In the above context of the case, it is considered of the educational program directed at the children and adolescents belonging in the indigenous communities, which was inhuman program of segregation and assimilation. It is called cultural genocide because all the children of the indigenous people of Chiluk descent, once they entered the program, were assimilated into the society of Quito. Since after completing their students, the adolescents will lose all contact with their communities and culture of origin, which endanger the subsistence of the indigenous peoples in the short term. Issues addressed in that are directed to the prosecution, well, for the Prime Minister, every inhabitant of Tehran should be educated to work in industrialization of the country. Likewise, as a minimum of term measure, we announced the implementation of an educational program. And many children and adolescents began to indigenous communities. The program consists in enrolling children and adolescents of school age in a boarding schools where they will receive education of the history, values, and culture of Huron. The curriculum was mainly in the Spanish, Portuguese, Romance language, and probably used the native languages. The plan proposed by the granting of scholarships to all indigenous boys and girls under the age of 18 to travel for their ancestral territories to a boarding school in three main cities of Iran. It also includes a nutritional plan setting up the consumption of animal meat, which is contrary to the vegetarian diet uh, of the indigenous culture of Iran. It was planning to provide 3 meals a day. It was obvious that the indigenous children will not be able to perform on the traditional rituals of grading of the sun and the moon. No one of the books include the curriculum made any allusion to the history of indigenous communities, whose cosmology depended largely of oral tradition. In addition, because they were in a boarding school, the children could not attend the weekly rituals celebrated by their communities. Students were allowed to wear traditional indigenous attires. The doctrine was maintained that the crime of genocide has two independent subjective requirements. One, on the hand, the article of the RS refers to the general intent, which is linked to hating of the crime, as well to the list of atypical acts directed against one of the protected groups, which is linked to the hating of the crime, as well as to the list of typical acts directed against one of the protected groups. While the Article 6 of the Human Rights requires in genocide that a special intent, that is an intent to destroy the whole of or part of the ethnic, racial, and religious groups such as, which goes beyond the objective elements of the definition of crime. According to the classification of the subject elements, wrongfulness, development in the measure, and the GC rule fall into the category of crime of intent, as crime of transcendent internal tendency. In the latter, the agent executes the material elements of the crime with a purpose that transcendence in mere commission. Thus, in nature, will be the crime cut off result, which the perpetrator performs an action in the domain of obtaining sequences of results. For example, when by means of the forced transfer of children from one ethnic group to another, the main is not destroyed a protected group. One of the other hand, the specific crimes refer not only to the perpetrator, the act that can be impugned has its own, in order to punish participation in crime-specific restrictions. Moreover, it is necessary to pay attention to the collective natural in the of the science and technological author of the organizational apparatus are needed to implement a genocidal plan. Within the apparatus, we can find accomplishments who are indifferent to the destruction of the protected group, accepting it as possible secondary consequence, just a case only the superior preparators must have a special intent recurrent at the same time. From the accomplishments will lead in planning the above argumentations corresponds to the jurisprudence of the ad hoc courts, and also according to which compliance in the GC must only know at the principal perpetrator is acting with the special intent but not necessarily possess it. Thank you for your attention.